everyone, I am Sneha, co-founder and CEO DevCompass, and I am absolutely thrilled to have you guys here. So proud of all of you guys keeping up to the course. It is not easy, I know, but again, few more steps. For everyone else who has no clue of what we are following through or what are Scratchpad files, compact, etc., please head over to devcompass.ai and you will get all the relevant information about the Claude certificate course and all of these terms covered in detail. This entire stage has been a lot about context window, the failures, how do you resolve it in multi-agent systems, how to fix it the right way, what is the coordinator not able to see, etc., and all of these failures come into production system. Last time in stage 4, video 3, we introduced something called as context fork, the mechanism for starting a very focused subsession without dragging the full history along. We also named and briefly mentioned Scratchpad files and compact as seeds for stage 5, but did not really talk about it in detail. So here we are, and this is where it gets full treatment. The failure pattern in the production logs, a Claude Code session running a large code base migration, 40 steps, the context is full, Claude starts getting confused outputs, contradicting earlier decisions, rechecking files it already processed, asking questions it already answered. Then the session crashes. No state saved, nothing to resume from, the whole run has to start over. This isn't hypothetical. It's the specific failure mode for any extended agentic session on a large code base. So Scratchpad files and compact together are the solution, and this video covers both. So let's get started. The core problem with extended sessions are that the context window is finite and it fills up really quickly. If you look at the left side of the diagram, context growth in a long session without management, it starts with system prompt at the first task, and we have discussed it before. By step 10, verbose discovery results are in there. All the file listings, all the intermediate observations. By step 25, earlier decisions and file reads are pushing important state towards the middle. By step 40, the context is full. Claude is working with degraded recall of its own earlier work. You are lost in the middle territory, except now that it's not a customer conversation. It's an agent losing track of a code base migration. So how do you manage such that the context stays lean? Same session, same work, but on the right side you can see that there are two differences. First, there are Scratchpad files. At each significant step, Claude writes its findings and decisions to external files and not to the conversation context, but into the file system. This Scratchpad is Claude's persistent memory outside the context window. When it needs to recall a decision from step 5, it reads the Scratchpad file rather than trying to recall from a buried context position. Second, /compact at defined checkpoints. At regular intervals, every 15 to 20 steps, the context is compacted. The full conversation history is summarized into a dense, structured block. The individual turns are collapsed. The context shrinks. Claude continues with a tighter, more manageable context that preserves the essential state without carrying every intermediate step. Two tools together, they extend the reliable working range of a session from around 20 steps to well beyond 100. Interesting, right? Okay, so Scratchpad files, again, what they are, when to write them. So we will look at both Scratchpad files and /compact one by one. First, what to write to the Scratchpad. You don't have to write everything. This Scratchpad is not a log. It's a structured external memory for the specific things that Claude will need to recall later and that would otherwise get buried. For example, decisions made. Step 7 decided to refactor the validation layer before migrating the API routes. Reason: 3 root files depend on the old validator interface. Files processed, a list of completed files, so Claude doesn't reprocess them. An open question, things that need resolution before the session can continue. And some of the key findings like data discovered during the session that will affect later steps. Second card is the format. Again, at this point we all know how much structure matters. Structured sections, not prose. Claude will read this file later using the read tool. It needs to parse it quickly and accurately. Headers for each section, dates or step numbers on each entry, short specific entries, not a narrative. Third card, when to write. At the end of each significant step and not on every tool call. Remember, not on every tool call. A significant step is one that produces a decision, a finding, or a list of completed work. Write to the Scratchpad, then continue. If the session crashes, the Scratchpad is the recovery point. If the context gets compacted, the Scratchpad preserves what the /compact would lose. Now, so much about Scratchpad. Let's look at what /compact really does. So, /compact is the second tool, okay? If you look at the first card, before /compact, there is a 30-step session. The context contains 30 turns of full conversation. Okay, now let us look at /compact. Okay, now let us look at /compact. Okay, before /compact, there is a 30-step session. The context contains 30 turns of full conversation history. Every tool call, every tool result, every immediate reasoning step. Most of it is no longer needed for the current step. The context is full of resolved history. The most recent 5 steps are what matter. The previous 25 are ballast. If you look at the right card after /compact, the same session, same point in the work, but /compact has run. The previous 25 steps are now compressed into a structured memory. Key decisions, the list of processed files, the open questions, roughly 10% of original tokens. The most recent 5 steps are preserved in full. They are the active working context and the context window is 80% free again. So how do you trigger it? It is the /compact command in a Claude Code session. Claude compacts the conversation history into a summary. It preserves the most recent turns in full. You can run it at any point, but the right pattern is to run it at a checkpoint. After writing the Scratchpad for that phase of word, Scratchpad first, then compact. This Scratchpad preserves the structure data. Compact compresses the conversation. Together, the important state survives in a recoverable form. Now, we will look at the crash recovery pattern. How do you exactly recover from a crash? So, let's take a scenario. The session runs for 50 steps, then crashes. No checkpoint, no Scratchpad. So, the loss is all 50 steps. You have to start over from 0, and that is the recovery flow on screen. But with the pattern in place, the session has Scratchpad files at steps 15, 30 and 45. When it crashes at step 50, the recovery is start a new session, read the Scratchpad file from step 45, read the processed files list and continue from step 46. Loss, 5 steps instead of 50. The state export here is the last piece. Before a long session begins or at the start of each phase, export a structured state snapshot, not a conversation transcript, a structured JSON object. Current objective, completed work, open questions, key findings. This is the object a new session reads to reconstruct where the previous session was. The walkthrough after this will implement all three. Scratchpad writes at each significant step, compact at phase boundaries, and a state export format for crash recovery. So that was it for the video. We talked about Scratchpad files that has structured external memory, decisions, processed findings, and about compact at checkpoints that frees up literally 80% of the context and preserves active work. If you ever undergo a crash and you want to recover, you should have a Scratchpad plus compact plus a state export so that you can restart from the last checkpoint. So context management is now handled for both conversation length and session length. The next failure mode is different in kind. Yes, we're not done with failures yet. It is a measurement problem, not a runtime problem. The extraction pipeline has been running for 3 months. The overall accuracy looks good, but that overall number is hiding something. The next video is about how to look at accuracy the right way by segment and what to do when a specific segment is failing while the overall number looks perfectly fine. So I will see you in the next one. Till then, be patient, attempt your walkthroughs, go grab a coffee or maybe stay hydrated. Do all of it. Do whatever takes your mind off this. Go for a walk, recall the concepts and come back with more energy, and we have a few more videos and walkthroughs to go, and then you will be literally an expert, or at least if not an expert, someone who literally has fallen in love with AI, understands how these tools work, how do you prevent a failure scenario, not just as a local project but someone who's writing production level codes. I'll see you in the next one.